Now we're going to move on to Twilight 2K. I'm going to warn you, I'm going to go a little bit faster with this one because I'm going to explain a little bit about what the Year Zero step dice system is. But this is quite a crunchier game, so I don't want to get too deep into it and put people off with the sheer length of this video. So this is a game about the post-apocalypse. So it used to be made by Game Designers Workshop, people who made Traveler. The Traveler setting, 2300 AD, used to have an explicit link to the Twilight 2K setting. The idea was that Soviet Union never fell, and there was a World War III that happened in the year 2000, and it was nuclear war that devastated everything. You're characters who have survived this nuclear apocalypse, and you're trying to survive what comes after. So again, this is a complete game in a box with loads of cool stuff in it, including awesome counters, cards, really cool dice, battle boards. You'll see, it's great. It also uses a life path generation system, which is my favorite thing in the world, so I love that. Now, I haven't actually opened the cards yet for this one, so we'll do that first, why don't we? All right, there we go. So we've got our 1 to 10 initiative cards. Once again, in familiar territory with Free League and the Year Zero engine and Dragonbane as well. Then we've got some cool other stuff in here. So they're encounter cards. These are things that occur as you explore the region. It's kind of like a hex crawling scenario, and various incidents can befall you of a combat or non-combat variety. The idea is that you are kind of like soldiers left in the midst of a wasted nuclear battlefield. You'll need to scrounge to survive. You might run into bad things like forest fires, and you'll need to overcome these challenges. You might have to deal with a pack of wolves, booby-trapped vehicles, ground zero, crater from a nuclear strike, and it gives you radiation, abandoned gas station with marauders, hungry and angry people, hunters, marauder roadblocks, murderous bastards, shoot on sight. So they're Soviet soldiers searching for stragglers. Watch out for that. Soviet soldiers with a tank. Oh god. A Soviet convoy. A village surrounded by barbed wire and sandbags. The guards. Dense fog. Rabid dogs. Yikes. A viper's nest. Okay. So there, yeah, you get ambushed by animals and stuff. Okay. So there's a really bad radiation there. Houses on fire. Refugees pleading for food. Hunters and their prey. Marauders. U.S. stragglers. Soviet soldiers, but you can barter with them. Soviet soldiers at a roadblock. Freight train commandeered by Soviet forces. Wow. You can buy and sell with people, local civilians. Maybe there's sunshine. Maybe you get an awesome dog, and he starts following you. If you treat him well with a persuasion roll, you'll become a loyal companion for the rest of its life, and even defend you against attackers. Oh, what a good dog. Smell of victory. Watering roll. Okay. Orphans. Local hunters that are good. Join us or die. That's less good. Ambush. That's particularly bad. Carnage. Okay, so there's murder happening. Death from above. Okay. Prisoner blues. So you can try to rescue some prisoners if you want. Okay, protect villagers from marauders. Rains of ash. Very hungry bear. Wow. Explosions and battlefields. Armageddon crater. Yikes. Wow, okay. Watch your step. So it seems there's mines and stuff. A lone wanderer. Another hunter. Roadside bombs. Band of stragglers. Ambushes. More ambushes. Prisoners of war. And a Mad King. Oh, lots of cool stuff there. So yeah, this game is really kind of sandboxy and got that old school flavor, but very much brought up to date with the times and the Year Zero, well, the Year Zero engine, rather. You can see we've got lots of cool dice here. So we got hit location die, so it immediately tells you the combat here is going to be more detailed than is typical for a Year Zero engine game. You can hit arms, chest, legs, head. His head exploding there, so you got to worry about that. Then you have these ammo dice, which you roll when you're firing your guns, and then you have your skill dice. Now, for these, it works similar to regular Year Zero, except, as I said, instead of dice pools, you roll one die that's drawn from your attribute and one die that's drawn from your skill. And in each of those, you can have a ranking, A, B, C, or D, A being the best, D being the worst. So if I put them in order, so a D is a D6, where you only get a success on a 6. Then next up is the D8, where 6, 7, or 8 will give you a success, which is a little target there. Then you have a D10, where if you get a 10, you get 2 successes. And then you have a D12, where if you get 10, 11, or 12, you will get a double success as well. And so you'll get one of each, depending on your attribute and skill ratings, and you just roll those 2 die and see what you come up with. So if I have a double D12, there I got 2 successes and a 2. Not bad, right? So it's very easy, very intuitive to pick up. You know, it's easy to understand how to improve your skills. You lose a little bit of granularity because they're just 4 steps between the dice. Some people have modified that. You can add weird dice from like Dungeon Crawl Classics, like D14, D16, and then even D20 on the top, or, you know, people have tried to add D4 at the bottom end. But it's a really nice system and very easy for newbies to get into. In general, lower numbers of dice per throw than you would be in a dice pool version of Year Zero. But I'm fond of both systems, to be quite honest. One thing that's cool about this set, right from the beginning, you get the right vibes. You've got these NATO briefings. So this is about the disposition of enemy forces around Lodz and Warsaw. So the 2 places you can play in this game, at least to start with, are in Poland and Sweden, respectively. So they also give you a briefing on what's happening around Stockholm. They've got an overall disposition of enemy forces here. So people are still fighting, even though the world is like blown to hell. And then you have blank character sheets. Now there's not pre-gens here, so far as I can tell. You just got some bunch of character sheets here. Looks like 6 in total. Of course, you get a PDF. Print out as many as you want. Now, if you look at the way the sheets are set up, so you have your name, nationality, branch, military rank, your appearance, moral code, your big dream, and how you met the group. These are kind of background stuff. Military rank, branch, those are kind of, and nationality, they affect certain numerical aspects of your character. Experience, your current and your total. Then you got your attributes. So you get a rating, A, B, C, D, and then your base die, as I mentioned. So your attributes are strength, agility, intelligence, and empathy, just like with Tales from the Loop or other Year Zero games. And you get a base die for that, and then you add in the die that you have for your rating in the skill, which will be, again, from D6 upwards. So under strength, you have heavy weapons, close combat, stamina. For agility, you have driving, mobility, and range combat. For intelligence, you have recon, survival, and tech. For empathy, you have command, persuasion, and medical aid. And then you've got armor, which can vary from your head, arms, torso, and legs. That's why you have the hit location die. In combat, you can take damage and also stress, which affects your mind. You've got your hit capacity, stress capacity, coolness under fire, and unit morale. So it's quite nice on the combat end of things. If you like tactical combat, you'll enjoy this game. It takes Year Zero and adds a lot more depth to the combat, and it really feels like you need to act like a military unit. It's really well done. You have your conditions you can acquire, like starving, dehydrated, sleep deprived, or hypothermic, and the radiation you can get that's temporary or permanent, which you don't want. And then your combat gear. You have up 12 slots for that. Tiny items you just write in here that don't count for encumbrance. And you have slots in your backpack to carry stuff. And then your weapon stats you should write down here at the bottom. So, yeah, once again, everything cleanly fits on one page, which is always a nice thing about these free league games. You get plenty to work with. Only need one page to talk about it all. So that's pretty cool. Then you got your maps here. Well, a map. It's double-sided. This is ginormous, so I'm not going to be able to show you the whole thing. Okay, so you can see these are hex-based maps. We have some wilderness areas, blasted out wasteland type areas. We've got the city of Lodz up here, various villages around the city of Krakow down here. So yeah, as you explore, you're trying to achieve objectives for your military unit, trying to survive, you're trying to deal with locals and whatever problems might come up. There's various rivers that you need to cross and deal with as well, some forests that could hide dangers. On the flip side of the map, we have the Stockholm location, which is very different because there's a hell of a lot more water. So I'm looking forward to the Hostile Waters expansion where we can get into some of that water combat stuff. So we've got sea here around Göteborg, down here on the bottom. Various villages, Lidköping, Skövde, Tilderholm, Mariestad, Karlstad, Eskilstuna. We've got Linköping. Stockholm is over here. You can just about make it out there in the corner. There it is. So yeah, let's start the game. Do you want to be in Sweden or Poland? Either is an interesting choice. They both have different types of environments to deal with. I think because it's a very like sandboxy game, you're going to get different experiences no matter what you choose. Then we've got all these zoomed in battle maps for even more tactical fun. So we'll just take a quick look at these guys. You've got, looks like a fortification here, maybe some kind of military base. They got some walls, they've got some wheat they're growing, and yeah, going to be difficult to breach. Then we have, looks like a bunch of houses. There's some artillery here. So yeah, the war has affected everybody. Not a great time for the world. Here we have a different sort of militarized zone. There's a graveyard here with lots of crosses, which is a bit of a shame. We've got varying types of terrain again. Now these are zoomed in, so you will be dealing with your individual counters and your tactical combat, which is lots of fun. Here we have a blasted out village. Look at all the ruins here. It's pretty horrible. There is still somebody surviving here, I guess. Looks like there's some plants and things. And then we have this bit here. These are like geomorphic tiles. You kind of put them together to make different setups, which is cool. And they're all double-sided. You can make like, bits of road that fit together and have encounters that you set up randomly, all kinds of cool stuff like that. Then we've got even more geomorphic tiles. Got some forestry. We've got some water there, rocks to hide behind. So we're getting into more natural terrain. Here we have a bit of road, T-junction, and a blasted out house, which maybe you could raid and find some stuff. Here we have a blasted out, maybe shopping mall or something like that, looks like. Some kind of stores. Here we have, looks like a residential area with some reasonable amount still livable. We've got some more natural bits. There's a clearing here and some tents. Somebody set up a camp here. Maybe we're going to raid them, steal some stuff. And then we have some more blasted out buildings. It's very depressing. And again, on the other side, people used to live here, I guess, but they're all dead now. And there's a crater here and just rubble everywhere. So loads of cool ways to build an endless variety of encounters with those geomorphs, which is lots of fun. And then we've got our cool tokens here. So these are like wargamey style counters, which I love. Nicely punched with rounded edges. You've got your allied soldiers, the Soviets obviously in red. You've got some yellow guys. You've got civilians and marauders. You've got various types of military vehicles as well. And then you've got some counters for different things that can happen in combat. Smoke, explosions, mines, and hazards. Chemicals or radiation or whatever. So those will be used on your battle maps and your geomorphs. And you can see as well on the other side of the counters for the people and vehicles. If the people go prone, you flip the counter over to show that side. And if the vehicle gets blowed up, then you leave that counter on the other side and it shows the blowed up vehicle, which remains as an obstruction. Now we've got big, thick manuals here. Player's manual is the bulk of the rules here. Again, I'm going to go through this with a pretty light touch here because there's a lot to this game, but it's in a good way. First chapter is about, what's the game about, essentially. Then building your characters, which takes up quite a lot of space because there's this life path method. Then the basic use of skills and specialties. Combat and damage, which is about 30 pages of content. It's quite a lot. Weapons, vehicles, and gear, which again is a huge amount of coverage. And finally, travel mechanics, which is a big part of this game. So loads of beautiful art, as always, with Free League. So you're on your own now, is the message. So basically, role-playing game about survival in mankind's most desperate hour. The world is ravaged by war, yet in this very bleak world, there is still hope. Mere survival is not enough. In the midst of utter destruction, you can start to build something new. Rally more people to your ranks, stake a claim and protect it. And maybe, if you live long enough, start turning the tide. So you can, kind of build a civilization of some kind and try to recover. So what do you do in the game? Stay alive, help those in need, look for information, find safe havens, maybe stake a claim, try to build something. Enemies will come knocking though, so you have to deal with that. Find a way home if you've been trapped in a foreign land, or reset the world. Maybe there's some way to heal it, or what if there's some way to save some part of the world that hasn't been destroyed yet? So then they talk about the two settings of Poland and Sweden. There's also information in the referee's manual about other regions, which you can use to set your campaign elsewhere, but you have to make your own maps. Campaign frameworks, so you can be civilians, maybe you're just fighting for survival, maybe you're refugees trying to get home or looking for shelter. It could be law enforcement, just trying to serve and protect the people that are still alive in your country. Maybe you're prisoners trying to find a new place for yourself, or you could be a mixed group. Maybe you've got some military people, some civilians, and you band it together for survival. I mentioned here as well that sometimes you'll need to roll a D3, 2D6, or D100. Of course, you have your character sheets, which we looked at, the dice we've looked at as well, and the cards. So we got them for drawing initiative during combat and for drawing encounters during travel. So we've got 10 initiative cards and 52 encounter cards. And then we've got maps and counters, so there are travel maps. And then there are larger double-sided battle maps for specific scenario sites. And then we've got those geomorphic tiles I mentioned that you can combine to quickly create a unique battlefield. We got our player characters. So we've got archetypes versus life path. So the archetype method is the quicker method, but life path, it lets you build your backstory in detail and it creates fleshed out characters. They also have more varied levels of competency because they lived real life and some things might have not have gone the way they expected. The archetype will give you more focused skills and less detailed backstory. So we have 4 main attributes. We've got military ranks, which are listed for the US, Soviets, the Polish, and the Swedish, which is very handy. And then your hit and stress stress capacity. Now they talk about your attribute scores. So your A, B, C, D translate to a die type. As I mentioned, D12 at the top, D6 at the bottom, and description of that capability. So rank of D is feeble, D8 is average, D10 is capable, and D12 is extraordinary. Again, not very granular, but it's really easy to understand. If you have nothing in a skill, then you're untrained. You only use the attribute though. You don't get a skill die at all for that. You can get specialties, fine-tune your character. Coolness under fire is a rating between A and D, just like an attribute. So the better your CUF, the better you are at keeping calm in combat. After each session which you rolled CUF, you have a chance to improve it. You got unit morale, so this is primarily used for CUF rolls. Then you got your moral code. So if you choose to follow your moral code, you get a +1 modifier to one related skill, if this makes sense in the situation, and you'll learn from the experience, earning an experience point at the end of the session. If you betray your moral code, you'll suffer 1 point of stress and have the option to scrap your moral code and write a new one. You should have a big dream as well, which is not just about living another day, but like saving the world or building a new society or something. And you choose one of the PCs that you feel closest to, and they're your buddy. You mark that choice in your character sheet. So if you risk your life or make a major sacrifice for them, you get a +1 modifier to one related skill roll, and you'll get bonus XP at the end of the session. Then you write about how you met, and your starting gear. It'll either be based on your archetype or your final pre-war life path, as appropriate for your nationality. You also assume to have a uniform or sturdy civilian clothing and a canteen for water. Then you have group gear. Together, pick a number of the items listed below equal to the number of PCs in the group. So this includes all kinds of cool stuff. A backpack, a bow and D6 arrows, any pistol or shotgun with D3 reloads, any sniper or hunting rifle, magazines, ammo belts, dirt bikes, grenades, binoculars, all kinds of cool stuff. Roll 2d6 on the table below and add the number of PCs in the group, and then choose an appropriate vehicle from the listed category. So you can get a vehicle as well. You can also discuss with the referee if you want a certain type of vehicle, but remember that if you get a vehicle, that you will draw attention from enemies. They also mention here that the value of ammo is very powerful in this game world, so the world economy is basically collapsed, so the only thing left to do is to barter with ammunition. Ammo serves the double purpose of being your currency and the thing you use to defend yourself, which is interesting. Then we got encumbrance, weight or bulkiness of your gear. One encumbrance is an item of about 3 kilograms. Food and water, so you gotta carry food and water so that you don't starve or get dehydrated. If you're lucky enough, you'll have a stockpile, so you'll need to assign one person to be the quartermaster, and they'll keep track of the stockpile, which would be probably kept in your vehicle if you have one. Then we got radiation. To finish off character creation, no matter what method you use, you roll a d6 to determine your starting amount of permanent radiation points. All right, so now we got the archetype creation method. And here we have an example. So here we have U.S. Army Private First Class. His buddy is Diaz. His name is Bronson. I'd give my life for my friends is his code. He's got a big dream of finding a place to settle down away from the war. He's got a strength of D12. Wow. Agility of D12. D8 in intelligence, D6 in empathy. He's got no skills in intelligence or empathy, but he's got some skills in driving, mobility, range combat, D10 in heavy weapons, D6 in close combat, and D8 in stamina. He's a specialty in machine gunnery. Got a hit capacity of 6. Stress capacity of 4, armor on his head and flak jacket. And then we've got his combat gear and several ammo belts. He's got a machine gun, got a flak jacket and knife, personal med kit, Kevlar helmet, and he's got the stats for those listed here on the bottom. So it's a long process here, which we won't go through. But basically, we'll look at the archetypes. So the civilian used to be a regular person. You can choose from examples of your specialties, your appearance, your moral code, your big dream, how you met the group. You start with no rank. Branch is blue collar or white collar. Your key attribute is empathy. Key skills are driving, survival, and persuasion. Coolness under fire is D, because you're not a combat-trained soldier. And you'll start with any civilian firearm, D3 reloads, knife or binoculars, D6 rations, basic tool set or dirt bike, D6 rounds of ammo for currency. You got the grunt. These were army and marine people. You've got some choices for your appearance, specialty, what kind of weapons you specialize in, etc. Your moral code, big dream, met the group again. Your gear will be an assault rifle appropriate for your nationality, D6 reloads, a flak jacket and helmet, a knife or D6 hand grenades, personal med kit, fatigues, backpack, D6 field rations, and D6 rations of clean water. You can be in the army or the marines. You roll a D6 or choose to be private, private first class, corporal, or sergeant. Key attribute is strength, key skills, close combat, stamina, range combat. Coolness under fire is C. All right. You got the gunner, the biggest in your unit. So you're kind of the heavy weapons dude, I suppose. You start the game with a light machine gun, D6 ammo belts, D6 hand grenades, or ATRL with D3 rounds, flak jacket and helmet, knife, personal med kit, fatigues, backpack, D6 field rations, D6 rations of clean water. You can be an army or marine. You can roll to choose your rank. Key attribute strength, key skills, heavy weapons, driving, and range combat. Coolness under fire is C. You got the kid. So you never had a chance to grow up. You were born in the apocalypse. That's terrible. Start the game with a bow, pipe gun, or zip gun, weapon, D3 reloads, knife, D6 rations of food, D6 water, D6 rounds of ammo for currency. Branch is none, rank none, key attribute agility, key skill, stamina, mobility, and survival. Coolness under fire is D, so you're more about sort of sneaking around, scrounging for things. You've got the mechanic. They can be Army, Marine, Navy, or blue collar. That's interesting. You can choose or roll a d6 to be a private first class, or specialist. Key attribute is intelligence in this case, and your key skills are stamina, driving, and tech. Coolness under fire is D, because you're less about combat, more about fixing stuff. So you start with an assault rifle appropriate for your nationality, D6 reloads, flak jacket and helmet, knife or D6 hand grenades, med kit, basic tools, vehicle tools or weapon tools, fatigues, backpack, D6 rations, and D6 clean water packs. You can also be a medic. You can be an Army, Marine, or white collar. You can be a private first class, specialist, or sergeant. Your key attribute is empathy. Key skills, stamina, medical aid, and persuasion. Coolness under fire is C, because you probably had to see some awful stuff in your career. And then you get a pistol or SMG appropriate for nationality, as a submachine gun, in other words. D6 reloads, flak jacket and helmet, knife for D6 hand grenades, D6 personal medkits, pain relievers or surgical instruments, fatigues, backpack, D6 rations, and D6 water. You got the officer, so you're a leader. Your branch could be Army, Marine, Navy, or police. You can roll a D6 to be lieutenant, captain, or major. Key attribute is empathy. Your key skills are range combat, command, and persuasion. Coolness under fire starts at C. And you start the game with a pistol or submachine gun for your nationality, D6 reloads, radio, manpack, or night vision goggles, flak jacket, knife for D6 grenades, personal medkit, fatigues, field rations, and D6 water as well. You got the operator, so you're kind of special forces. Check out this dude. He's all Arnie Schwarzenegger and Predator. You can be Army, Marine, Navy, Intelligence Services, or Police. You can be a Staff Sergeant or Sergeant First Class or a Master Sergeant. Key attribute is agility. Key skills, range combat, recon, and survival. Coolness under fire is B. Oh, so he's quite good at keeping his head in combat. You can start with any assault rifle or sniper rifle. You can get any pistol or D6 hand grenades or rifle-mounted grenade launcher. D6 reloads for all of your weapons. Binoculars or night vision goggles. Flak jacket and helmet. Knife. Personal medkit. Fatigues. Backpack. D6 rations. D6 water. Cool. Then we got the spook. So you're a spy. You can be in the intelligence branch. No rank. Key attribute intelligence. Key skills range combat, recon, persuasion. Coolness under fire is B again. So you're James Bonding it. You're used to crazy stuff. You start the game with any pistol, D6 reloads, radio or binoculars, knife or D6 units of explosives. Cool. Personal medkit, D6 rations of food, D6 rations of water. And now we have the life path generation, which is even more complicated, more steps, but it's cool. You determine what happened to you in childhood. So, were you a street kid, small town, working class, intellectual, military family, or affluent? And then you can get certain skills from those and choose your specialty or roll a D6. Then your military service, similar to Traveler, you go through different terms and you'll get different starting gear depending on whether you're combat arms, combat support, combat service support, special ops, or officer. And then they talk about the different forces within the US, the Soviet Union, Sweden, and Poland. And there's civilian careers as well that you can take. So police, which come with their own skills, specialties, and starting gear. You could be a criminal, you could be intelligence gatherers, you could be a blue-collar worker. You could have continued in education for more terms to gain some int skills, like in computers and stuff. White collar will also give you advantages on non-combat skills. And then what happened to you during the war? So during your final term of at war, you can increase any 2 skills of your choice by 1 step each. You cannot increase 1 skill 2 steps. You roll a d6 for a final new specialty, and then you see if you were drafted. So they give you a nice example here of how to go through all that. And then you can develop your character. So at the end of the session, you get experience points similar to what we saw in Dragonbane and in other Year Zero games. The GM will ask you questions at the end of the game. Did you participate? Then you get 1 XP. Did you follow your moral code? Did you risk or sacrifice something significant for your big dream? Did you travel at least 1 hex that you had not visited before? Did you overcome 1 or more dangerous events using violent or non-violent means? And did you risk your life for the PC was your buddy? You get 1 XP per question. If the answer is not clear-cut, then the referee will listen to your arguments and come up with a final decision. Then you can spend XP to improve your skills and specialities or to learn new ones, but you can only spend XP during a shift when you rest or sleep. So to increase the skill level by 1 step costs a number of XP indicated on the table to the right. If you want to have a skill go from 0 to D, you need 5 points. From D to C is 10, C to B is 15, and B to A is 20. Yeah, learning a new skill costs 5 XP. To raise a skill level or gain a new skill at level D, you must have used the skill and succeeded at least once since your last increase. You make a mark by the skill to indicate this. Only meaningful rolls where something is at stake count for this purpose. You can also be instructed by a teacher for 1 shift with a higher skill than you to gain that mark as well. After any session where you made a coolness under fire roll and succeeded, you have a chance to roll your CUF. You roll the base die. If the result is a 1, increase your CUF 1 step. The maximum CUF is A. However, becoming cooler under fire can make you emotionally numb. Each time your CUF increases, roll your base die for empathy. If the result is 6 or higher, your empathy rating is permanently reduced by 1 step to a minimum of D. You can also get changed unit morale if you've been in combat, and defeated people will increase unit morale. If somebody's been killed or fatally wounded, or somebody's starving, or dehydrated, or sleep deprived, or hypothermic, then you can decrease unit morale by 1 step, but it can never go below F, which is no die at all, and never above A, which is D12. If you betrayed your moral code, you can scrap it and write a new one. After any session, you can change your big dream and replace it with a new one, and at the end of any session, you can choose your buddy to be different from the one you currently have. Now we've got skills and specialities. So here we have the explanation of the dice, which we've already kind of been through. So we have the custom dice, which have the target symbols, which mark successes. The one side gets a little explosion mark to mark damage from push rolls. Tan-colored dice are ammo dice, and if the white die is a hit location, and the white die is hit location die. Got those 12 core skills linked to the main attributes, which is typical for year 0. Multiple successes, a roll of 10 or higher counts as 2 successes. That means you can potentially roll up to 4 successes with a single skill roll. With bonus successes beyond the first, you can achieve additional effects if explicitly stated in the rules. If you roll no successes, something goes wrong, but failure shouldn't stop the story completely. So same basic idea as we've seen elsewhere in Free League games. You can also push your roll. If you fail or if you want additional successes, you can lean into the action, giving it everything you've got. So you reroll all dice except those with result of 1. You must reroll all dice not showing success or explosion, and you cannot change back to the previous result. Each time you push a roll, you immediately suffer 1 point of damage if you roll for strength or agility, 1 point of stress if you roll for int or empathy, and for each explosion you roll on the base dice, 1. If this damage incapacitates you, this happens after the action is resolved. If you used a tool, any damage from pushing will affect the item instead of yourself and decrease its reliability rating. If you push your roll, you must also re-roll any ammo dice that don't show a 1 or a 6, which is a bullet on the ammo dice. A 1 on ammo dice will damage your firearm and decrease its reliability rating, just like ones rolled on your base dice. You can only push skills when you're actively performing, so if you're rolling recon to see if you spot somebody or somebody uses persuasion on you, you can't push the roll because you're not actively doing something. You can only push your roll once. If you don't succeed the second time, then you have to describe and deal with the consequences. And they encourage you to do it yourself. Don't wait for the referee. They should only stop you if you go beyond the results you've rolled. And also, you shouldn't roll too often. It's hard to succeed, and the odds are not in your favor. So don't roll dice unless necessary. Basically, if drama is involved or there's tough challenges. In other situations, the referee should simply allow you to perform whatever action you wish. You can also do group rolls, so you decide who amongst you is best suited to take on the challenge. Others may help this person, and if the roll fails, it counts as a failure for all of you. You're not allowed to try one more time each. Doesn't apply to combat. There's also modifiers. So a +1 modifier upgrades a base die 1 step, a +2 upgrades 2 steps, and so on. Minus modifiers do the same in reverse, and they are cumulative and affect each other. So a +2 and a -1 add up to +1. So when stepping them down, always try to balance your dice as much as possible, i.e. step up a lower base die first and down step a higher base die. You can never go above 2d12s no matter what modifiers you have. To down step past 2d6s, remove 1 die. You can never go below 1d6. Interesting. And of course, they've got the wonderful chances of success table, which I love. So your attribute skill, cross-referenced here, gives you a chance of success. If you've got 2d12s, it's 82%. 2d6s, it's 31%. If you've got a chance of success, then on a push roll, it rockets to 97% with double d12s, which is pretty cool. The referee doesn't assess difficulty, like by adding or subtracting to it, but they might give modifiers to your roll depending on the circumstances. So familiar equipment, specialized equipment, if you have a spotter, if you have tools, they might give you positive modifiers. If you're using unfamiliar equipment or improvising stuff, or the weather conditions are bad, or you've got poor ingredients for your rations or whatever, you can get negative modifiers. There's specific modifiers as well for combat in particular. If you get help from others, so for each person helping you get a +1 modifier, but no more than 3 people can help you with a single roll. In combat, helping counts as the same type of action as the one you're supporting, either fast or slow. NPCs can help each other in the same way as PCs. And then they talk about opposed roll. So you must roll more successes than your adversary. Every success your adversary rolls eliminates one of yours. Only you can push your roll, and you can decide to do so even after your opponent rolls. Sometimes you roll for different things, skills, and sometimes the same. Opposed rolls are common when you use persuasion to influence someone or recon to move undetected. So it seems like an equal roll favors the defender. So to win, you must roll more than your adversary. Yeah, okay. NPCs use skills the same way as the player characters, but should only roll for stuff that affect the PCs directly. You can also use gear, which will give you benefits to things you're trying to do, like med kits and whatnot. But gear also has reliability ratings, which is like hit capacity. So damage from pushing rolls or outside force will reduce the reliability rating. At 0, the item is broken and can't be used. So it's like mutant use 0 kind of stuff. You can repair broken gear using the tech skill and spare parts. Damage to vehicles is more complex, but we won't probably get into that. Then we got the skills, which are described in detail here. Then we have specialities. So specialities typically give you a +1 modifier in certain situations or when using particular gear. Now they're categorized by the skill they're most commonly used with. So close combat specialties, you can get brawler, melee, killer. You can kill an incapacitated person outright without suffering any negative effects. That's pretty cool. Martial artist, you have a crit threshold of 3 for unarmed close combat attacks instead of 4. Melee gives you +1 for close combat rolls, and brawler gives you +1 to close combat rolls for unarmed combat. Heavy weapons, you have machine gunner, +1 to heavy weapons. Launcher crew, +1 to heavy weapons for grenade launchers and missile launchers. Red leg, +1 modifier to heavy weapons with mortars and howitzers. Vehicle gunner, +1 modifier to heavy weapons with vehicle mounted cannons. Stamina specialties, you can be a builder, +1 modifier to stamina made for base building. Load carry gives you 4 additional encumbrance units. NBC, +1 modifier to stamina for infection rolls for nuclear, biological, and chemical agents. Ranger, +1 modifier to stamina made for marching, hypothermia, and other hardships. SARE training gives you +1 modifier to stamina to resist interrogation and torture. Driving specialties, biker, boatman, pilot, racer, and tanker give you a +1 modifier to the appropriate type of vehicle. Mobility specialties, diver, mountaineer, paratrooper, pitcher gives you +1 to mobility rolls for thrown weapons. Rider gives a +1 bonus to horseback. Runner, +1 for running. The other, it's all pretty obvious stuff, basically. Different types of movement, you'll get a +1 in that specialty. Range combat specialties, archer is +1 to bows. Reloader, +1 to reload your firearm. Rifleman, +1 to range combat rolls for firing assault rifles, carbines, SMGs, and shotguns. Sidearms, +1 modifiers to range combat rolls for revolvers and pistols. Sniper, +1 to range combat for firing sniper rifles and hunting rifles. Recon, you get combat awareness, so you can draw 2 cards instead of 1 and choose which one you want for initiative. Forward observer, your recon skill level is 1 step higher when directing indirect fire. Historian, roll recon when you arrive at a new location. Infiltrator, +1 to recon when trying to remain undetected. Intelligence, roll recon when you spot enemy troops. If you succeed, the referee should tell you their stats. Oh, that's nice. Investigator, roll recon when you spend a stretch or more investigating the scene of a crime or battle. If you succeed, the referee should give you some useful info about what has happened and when. Scout gives you +1 modifier to recon rolls for spotting others and avoiding ambushes. Survival specialties, cooks, farmers, fishers, foragers, navigators, hunters, quartermasters, and scroungers give you +1 modifiers to survival rolls for the appropriate things. Tech specialist, blacksmith, chemist, combat engineer, communications, computers, electrician, gunsmith. Improved munitions gives you IED and zip gun bonuses. Locksmiths is for picking locks, cracking safes, and disarming alarms. Mechanics and scientists. So all those give you +1s to the appropriate tech rolls. Command specialists, you get frontline leader for +1 to command for helping someone who is incapacitated by stress. Does not affect unit morale. Logistician, when building a base, you can roll command instead of any listed skill, but only if you have help. Tactician, roll command when you spot an enemy force. If you succeed, the referee must tell you something useful about the current organization and objectives. Nice. Medical specialties, combat medic, +1 to medical aid for incapacitated characters. Counselor, +1 to medical aid for long-term mental trauma. Field surgeon, +1 to medical aid for treating critical injuries. General practitioner, +1 modifier to medical aid for disease, poison, and NBC, nuclear, biological, and chemical. Veterinarian, +1 modifier to medical aid rolls for animals. That's nice. Persuasion, you could be a linguist, so you get another language. Musician, +1 bonus to persuasion, where situations where singing or playing an instrument is helpful. Interrogator, +1 to persuasion for extracting info from a prisoner. Psyops, +1 for changing someone's mind. +1 bonus for a teacher for teaching someone a specialty. Trader, +1 bonus to persuasion when negotiating. Cool. Now we have combat and damage. So here we have the battle maps, combat tokens. You can play without maps in Theater of the Mind, but they say it's recommended to use battle maps, and I would say the same. The combat is quite tactical, so I think using a VTT for playing online would be advisable for this. Then we have rounds and initiative. Of course, we have the typical rules for drawing initiative and surprise. Then exchanging initiative. If you have another willing player whose turn has not yet come up, you can swap your initiatives, but you must be able to speak to them, even if only by radio, to exchange your actions. Reactive actions that that occur out of turn are not affected by exchanging initiative. Your spent actions still count as spent, even if you get a new initiative number. An alternative rule for hidden initiative, if you want kind of fog of war, that's pretty cool. And during your turn, you have slow and fast actions. You get in your turn 1 slow action, 1 fast action, or 2 fast actions. And then you get free actions. So dropping to the ground, shouting a few words, they don't count. You can only do them on your own turn, unless you're forced to go prone by a failed cool under fire roll. So when it's your turn to act, state what action you wish to perform and roll dice if needed. Some actions like blocking and overwatch fire will give your opponent the opportunity to perform a reactive action, which will break the turn order. You can also use your action to help someone else. Cost you 1 action of the same kind that they're doing. So you need to keep track of your actions that you've used because they can occur out of order. So they say, turn the initiative card 90 degrees for every performed action. Turn it to the left for a fast action, to the right for a slow action, and all the way 180 degrees once both actions are used up. All actions are refreshed at the start of each round. That's a good tip. Then we got a list of slow actions and the prerequisite you need for them, and the skill. So this is stuff like get something from a backpack, persuade somebody, do an unarmed attack, melee attack, grapple attack, break free of a grapple, shoot a firearm, clear a jam in a firearm, aim a sniper rifle, shoot a bow, throw a weapon, aim a mortar or howitzer, fire a heavy weapon, direct indirect fire, so a target has to be in sight, first aid, rally, enter and exit a vehicle. You got fast actions, drop a backpack, seek cover, full or partial, go from full to partial cover, run, cross a barrier, move through a door, crawl, get up, draw item from combat gear, shove, disarm, grapple attack, retreat, aim, prepare bow, assume overwatch position, reload, slow action if failed, pull grenade pin, get on a bike, grab the wheel, start engine, drive, or use item. All of those are fast actions. Free actions include dropping to the ground if you're standing up, dropping a held item if it's in your hand, going from partial to full cover if you're in partial cover, and shouting a few words. Then we talk about the effects of terrain. So there's different types of hexes as we've seen: pavements, fields, shrubland, debris, forest, foliage, swamp, shallows, blocking terrain, and indoors. They have different visibility limitations. If you're in forest, for example, you can see for 3 hexes. In dense foliage, only 1. Range attacks will get different modifiers depending on the terrain as well as movement. Some terrain like debris, forest, and indoors will give you cover, and infiltration will get bonuses for certain types of terrain and negative modifiers if you're highly visible on the pavement or in a field. This is the modifier to recon rolls, basically, if you're trying to stay hidden. So they talk about different types of movement, different types of cover. They give you types of typical barriers, the height that they're at, and the armor level that they grant you. So when you're behind cover, that will help reduce damage that's incoming. Visibility and line of sight. Of course, you need to worry about, if you have light sources or night vision or searchlights. Flares can help you with your vision, and here they give you an example of line of sight, so you can see up in front of you, but certain things are blocked by the terrain. You can't see behind this dense foliage, you can't see behind this foliage or behind these rocks. Then there's the modifiers and visibility for different kinds of weather and darkness. Smoke, you can use tokens. That can be natural smoke or can be from smoke launcher or grenade. You roll a d6 at the start of each round for each smoke marker on the battle map, and on a result of 1, remove it. Thermal optics can still see through smoke. That's handy. So line of sight can be broken by high barriers, blocking terrain, a hex at a higher elevation than both you and your enemy, a hex filled by smoke, 3 hexes of forest or 1 of foliage, and the number of hexes in excess of the visibility limit due to darkness or weather. We've got ambushes. They give you recon modifiers depending on how far away your target of the ambush is. They've got social conflict. So it's a opposed roll for persuasion against your opponent. Counts as a slow action for you, the active party. If you successfully persuade them, you sway them somehow and state the stated goal of your roll. If you reach multiple successes more than the opponent, you might even gain some further bonuses. Your negotiating position will affect your roll. So you can get some positive modifiers like more people on your side. What you're asked for doesn't cost anything. Your opponent is sick. Your opponent is a captive. You outrank your opponent if they're on your side. Or you get negative modifiers. If your opponent has more people, you ask for something valuable, they have nothing to gain by helping you, you're a captive, you can't understand each other due to language, you're too far away, or your opponent outranks you. You can persuade groups, but it's modified depending on the size of the enemy group, of course. And you can roll against stamina to do interrogation. You get a +1 modifier for your opponent being held captive. Interrogation can be used against PCs, actually forcing you to disclose information no matter if you as a player want to or not. Oh, that's cool. All right, then we got close combat. So damage, you hit your adversary and inflict your weapon's base damage. Each extra success will increase the damage by 1. Roll a random hit location and apply the effects of armor. If the damage done after mitigation by armor and cover is equal to or higher than the crit threshold of your weapon, you inflict a critical injury. Ouch. Then you have your pushing and reliability stuff, which is the same as what we saw before. If you're prone, your combat Close combat get -2 modifier, and your hits will automatically be on the legs. Close combat attacks against a prone target get a +2 modifier, +3 if your target is defenseless. If you want to aim a blow, then you need to make an aimed attack with a -2 modifier. You can try to block close combat roll. Every success you roll eliminates one success from the attacker's success. It's not an opposed roll, so you can push it, declaring that you wish to do so after the attacker has declared and performed any push themselves. So blocking doesn't break the turn order, but it does count against your 2 available actions. For every block, you get 1 less action when it's your turn, and once you run out of actions, you can no longer block anymore either. You can also do diving blows, you can shove people, you can try to disarm them, you can do grappling, and you can do a retreat. So that somebody in the same hex as you must make a mobility move to move out of the hex. If you fail, you still move, but your enemy gets an immediate free close combat roll against you, so you have attacks of opportunity in this game, kind of like D&D. Range combat, so you roll range combat, except for thrown weapons which use mobility. Then you have your various modifiers, depending on if there's smoke or elevation or all that kind of stuff. Firing a weapon is, of course, a slow action. If the attack succeeds, you hit them and inflict your base damage. Each extra success will increase the damage by 1. Roll for a random hit location and apply the effects of armor. Critical injury, so that works the same as with close combat. Aiming, before you fire, you can spend a fast action to aim at your target. If you don't do that, your action counts as a quick shot and gets a -1 modifier for pistols, carbines, and SMGs, and a -2 for anything else. If you have a telescopic sight, you can aim as a slow action and get a +1 bonus. If you have a stable platform like cover or a bipod, or on the ground if you're prone, you get a +2 bonus. No ammo dice can be used in the attack. So each weapon has a range. Firing at medium range gives you -1, long range -2, extreme range -3. Firing in close combat, you get negative modifiers as well, but less or so for pistols and small weapons. Shotguns, range gives no negative modifier to hit. Instead, the base damage is reduced by 1 at medium range, by 2 at long range, and by 3 at extreme. Note that the base damage at extreme range for most shotguns will be 0. Even a hit that inflicts no damage can still cause suppression. Firing at a prone target gives you a -1 modifier because they're smaller unless they're in the same hex. So dropping to the ground is a free action but can only be done on your turn. You can take cover as a fast action as well. And there's a big list of ranged attack modifiers here. So then you have partial cover. Does not modify the hit chance but gives you an armor level for body parts behind the cover. Full cover breaks line of sight and typically makes it impossible. You can still fire with a -3 modifier if the referee rules the attacker knows the approximate location of the target. All hit locations are protected by full cover. So called shots, if you want to shoot a specific part of the body, then you get a -2 modifier. You get a -2 modifier if they're moving. If they're large, they're easier to hit, you get +2. If they're tiny, -2. If you're firing from a hex at a higher elevation, you get +1 modifier. Machine guns are fired using heavy weapons, but when firing from a vehicle mount, use agility instead of strength. There are 3 types of machine guns: light LMGs, general purpose machine guns. Can be fired when carried with a -3 modifier. LMGs can be fired with -2 when carried, but they're normally fired from a bipod. General purpose are bipod, tripod, or vehicle mount, and heavy can only be fired from a tripod or vehicle mount. One-handed shooting with a pistol, you don't get a penalty, but for everything else, you will get a -2 modifier. Rifles and assault rifles can be fired one-handed, but only at short range with a -3. You can fire at a target, even if your line of sight crosses a hex where you have friendlies, but they all must immediately make cool under fire rolls to avoid being suppressed. Also, if you miss, roll 2d6 base dice. Any success means a random friendly is hit instead, and a second success will increase the damage by 1. Ouch. Then we have Overwatch, so this is cool. Though for those of you who know Space Hulk or XCOM, those kind of games, you'll know what this means. You sort of watch over an area, you look out for a specified hex in line of sight, place an Overwatch token in that hex. So you can fire a weapon once against any target in the target hex, whenever you want in the round. So the shot is resolved before all other actions, even if they're already declared. So you get to pop off a shot. If they say, I jump out into this hex and fire, you still get to shoot first, because you're watching for them to pop out. That's cool. If you're Overwatch versus Overwatch, then you've got to do an opposed range combat roll to determine who goes first. You can lose Overwatch either by doing something else other than Overwatch, being attacked in close combat, suffering damage, or being suppressed. So ammo dice. All right, so you got 6 ammo dice in the box. You can add as many ammo dice to your attack as you like, from 0 up to the rate of fire, or the number of rounds left in the magazine -1, whichever is lower. If you only have 1 round left, you can't add any ammo dice to the roll. Rolling a 6 on an ammo dice is a success, but successes on ammo dice do not contribute to hitting your target. Instead, they have specific effects outlined below. If the attack hits, each bullet on your ammo dice can be used to either increase damage by 1 per bullet, or to trigger an additional hit on the same target or on a secondary target in the same same hex. Oh, that's cool. Each additional hit inflicts base damage on a random hit location, and the damage is increased by 1 for each further bullet you spend on it. If your attack misses, rolling 1 or more bullets on your ammo dice means the target can still be suppressed. Oh, that's awesome. And then you got pushing and reliability. If you roll 2 or more explosions on your base dice or ammo dice after pushing, your weapon jams, and so you have to spend an action to clear it. But you need to roll either range combat or heavy weapons to clear the jam, and if you fail, you need to do it again. So after you roll, sum up the d6 digits on all of your ammo dice, then add 1. This is the total amount of ammunition you've spent on the attack. If your ammo is empty, then you'll need to reload your weapon. Take a fast action, roll for range combat. If you fail, it's a slow action. So you still get to reload, but it just takes up more time. So tracking ammo is important, particularly for heavy weapons, where they'll be pretty rare. Bows and thrown weapons don't give you ammo dice. You can retrieve ammo from bows and thrown weapons from the target. Sometimes you need a medical aid roll and inflicts 1 point of damage on the victim, or from the ground if you missed. Bows don't need reloading, but you have to prepare a bow as a fast action before you can fire it. Suppression. If you're hit by enemy fire, or if 1 or more ammo dice and a failed attack against you show a bullet, you must immediately make a coolness under fire roll. You roll a base die for your current CUF rating. If you have line of sight to any non-incapacitated friendly fighter, roll a base die for your current unit morale rating of your unit. The CUF roll does not count as an action. It's not a skill roll. You cannot push a CUF roll if you fail. Only firearms, heavy weapons, and explosions can trigger suppression. If you fail your roll, you're suppressed. That means you immediately drop prone, suffer 1 point of stress, and lose both actions on your next turn. If you're suppressed, place a suppressed marker on your token on the battle map. If you fail the CUF roll and get suppressed, all friendly fighters in the same hex as you also must make CUF rolls to avoid being suppressed as well. So a single attack, though, can only trigger 1 CUF roll for the same person, never several rolls. A target fully inside a vehicle cannot be suppressed, but they can be forced to bail out. They've got a nice combat example here, giving you some different variants. Then we got rules for explosions, blast damage. Anyone in the blast area of an explosion, even if they are not hit, is automatically knocked prone and must make an immediate CUF roll or be suppressed. If the target is prone, the blast power is reduced by 1 step. Cover provides protection, and then they have blast power ratings, which are equivalent to different dice rolls, damage, crit thresholds, and armor. And they have an example and different types of explosives: landmines, anti-personnel mines, anti-tank mines, directional mines, which go in a specific direction. Those are like claymore mine type of things. IEDs, improvised explosive devices. Hand grenades, so they are thrown weapons. It gives you an outline of how to use them here. Shrapnel, you can add it to IEDs as well as shaped charges to give them directional effect. Heavy weapons, direct damage is resolved just like small arms fire. Explosions, so if they have an explosive effect, they're in addition to the direct damage and rolled for separately, not affected by your attack roll. Use the heavy weapon skill. Aiming is a fast action. So targeting, you generally used against large targets like a vehicle or an entire hex. You get no bonus for firing at larger targets. Instead, you suffer a -2 penalty if you fire a heavy weapon at an individual. And you get heavy weapons fire modifiers. You get deviation as well. So if you roll an explosive effect and it fails, no matter if it was aimed at a hex or a specific target, roll 2 d6s to see where the round lands. The first d6 determines the direction of deviation, which is shown here. The second d6 determines how far from the target hex that the round lands in hexes. The deviation cannot exceed half of the distance to the target rounded up. Then you got different types of ammo, which is cool. So high explosive, heat rounds, which are anti-tank, armor piercing, white phosphorus, yikes, chemical rounds, illumination rounds. And then we've got indirect fire. So this is, somebody can spot for you with a recon roll if they could see the target. They'll call in corrections to you by radio, so you know where to fire. Then you can have anti-tank guided missiles. Fire and forget, you just shoot it and it guides itself to the target. If you succeed, the missile will hit in the next round unless the target is moved out of extreme range. So there's lots of ways to suffer damage. We talked about hit locations, armor and cover. Armor levels, which are restricted to certain parts of the body. All weapons have an armor modifier, which is applied to any armor level before determining penetration. It's not applied if the target has no armor. Damage done is reduced by the modified armor level once you roll the damage. It reduces the damage to 0. The hit is fully deflected. You still need to make a CUF roll. If the base damage rating of the weapon is 2 steps lower than the modified armor level or more, the attack is fully deflected, no matter how many successes or bullets were rolled for the attack. A piece of armor or cover is penetrated by an attack, roll a d6 base die. On a 1, its armor level is decreased by 1 step. Ouch. If the armor level reaches 0, the armor or cover can no longer provide any protection. You can repair it on a shift of work. Each success rolled restores 1 point of armor level up to the original score. Damage equal to or in excess of your hit capacity, you become incapacitated. You're knocked senseless. You can only crawl and mumble through the pain. You can't do anything else. If you're incapacitated by damage, you are defenseless. If it's a human being and you want to kill them outright, you must fail an empathy roll. Roll base die only. If the roll succeeds, you simply cannot force yourself to commit the deed. Even if the roll fails and you do kill the victim, you suffer 1 point of stress. Killing in cold blood is not easy. If you have the killer specialty, you can kill defenseless enemies without these negative effects. Recovery, which uses medical aid. Further recovery. For each full shift spent resting or sleeping, you'll gain 1 point of damage back, assuming you're not starving, dehydrated, or hypothermic. If you suffer 1 or more point of damage from an external attack, you risk infection. If you don't get a medical aid roll within a shift, you can make an infection roll to resist falling ill. Antibiotics give you a +3 modifier. You can treat yourself as long as you're not incapacitated. Critical injuries. Arm crits automatically make you drop any held items, and all leg crits make you fall down. If the damage of an attack exceeds the weapon's crit threshold by 2 steps or more, the critical injury is severe. That means you roll 2 d10s on the critical injury table and use the highest result. If it's 4 steps higher, roll 3 d10s, use the highest result, and so on. If you suffer critical injury listed as lethal, you must make a death save when the listed time limit is passed. If the time limit is around, make the roll on your next turn. The death save is not an action in itself. It's a roll for stamina. You can push the roll if you're not incapacitated. If a death save fails, you die. If you succeed, you linger on, but you must make another death save when the listed amount of time has passed again. Okay. You can stabilize crits. Some critical injuries do an instant kill. Healing crits, they give you skill modifiers, do critical injuries, and are cumulative and apply even if you don't have the listed skill. If someone is tending to you for a shift per day during the process of healing, they make a medical aid roll, then that day counts as double for healing. You can still heal all of your damage, but still suffer the effects of a critical injury. And then we got the critical injury tables for each location. So for the head, they range from ear slashed, which gives you recon -1 and a heal time of d6, to brains blown out, where you're instant death. For torso, from snapped collarbone to punctured lung, reducing stamina mobility -2, to heart impaled, which is instant death. Legs, you can crush your toes, so running becomes a slow action. You can break your shin bone. You can only crawl. You can get a severed leg. Can't run, and mobility -2, and is permanent. For your arms, you can dislocate your shoulder, range combat -2 with two-handed weapons. Dislocated elbow, two-handed weapons cannot be used. Or severed arm, two-handed weapons cannot be used, and it's a permanent loss of an arm. Mental effects, if you get a crit, you can get a nervous tremble, reducing range combat and driving by 1. You can get nightmares, coolness under fire roll, every shift spent sleeping. If failed, the sleep doesn't count. Oh boy. You can get a phobia, 1 point of stress each time you're in the same hex as the object of phobia related to the trauma. You can get alcoholism, or you can become catatonic and be immobile and non-responsive completely. So that's from stress-related injuries. Then we have the different conditions. So starving, dehydration, sleep deprivation, hypothermia work much as in Dragonbane, actually. Pretty much the same. You have to be warmed up by campfires, to avoid being cold, and you can get damage from being cold. Sleep deprivation takes place when you haven't had at least 1 shift per day of sleep. Dehydration, you have to drink a ration of water per day, and you must eat a ration of food once per day. There's falling damage, drowning damage. Fire is rated in intensity from A to D. Fire crits can happen as well. They have a critical injury threshold of 2, but you don't roll for the injury. Instead, the effect is always a -2 to stamina and mobility. It's lethal. Death saves must be made each stretch, and the healing time is 2d6 days. Chemical warfare, oh boy. Protective suits will give you protection. A mask gives you a -2 modifier. However, the blast power, if it's an A, you'll get effect radius of 3 hexes. B, you'll be 2. C, you'll be 1. D, you'll be target hex only. And you got different kinds of nerve agents. So you've got stuff like VX gas. If you fail a stamina roll, you suffer 1 point of damage, 1 point of stress, and further points on each of your subsequent turns, even if you leave the contaminated area. If you're incapacitated by damage, you must make a death save every round. The only way to save your life is to inject you with atropine. It doesn't need a medical aid roll though. Blistering agents, they're about incapacitating, like mustard gas kind of stuff. When you get exposed, you make a stamina roll, and if you were unprotected, then you will get modifiers to that. A hazmat suit will give you full protection. If you fail the stamina roll, 1 point of damage, 1 point of stress, and a critical injury as from fire, with death saves every shift, not stretch. And then it gives you a list of the protection against nerve and blister agents. Got radiation as well. So rads, they permeate your body and build up over time. Weak radiation in hotspots, you get 1 rad per shift. Strong radiation, 1 rad per stretch. Extreme radiation, 1 rad per round. You can also gain rads from certain actions like contaminated food or drink, or coming into contact with contaminated items, called a rad attack. So when you gain a rad, you must immediately roll for stamina to resist radiation poisoning. The virulence of the disease is equal to +4 minus your total rad count. If you're in a vehicle, the frequency at which you suffer rads is halved. So here's a table for your radiation sickness rolls. When you have left the hotspot, 1 rad will leave your body every day. If you wash your body in clean water, half of your rads go away immediately, but you only get that once. If you are contaminated eliminated, there's a risk that you're stuck forever, those rads. Every time you're about to lose one rad, roll a d6. If you roll 1, the rad stays, it becomes permanent, mark this on your character sheets. They stay with you for the rest of your life. Great. Then we have a variety of diseases: food poisoning, pneumonia, typhoid fever, wound infection, typhus, dysentery, cholera, rabies, plague, and radiation sickness, of course. We got vehicle combat. Getting in and out, how vehicle movement works. Vehicles have facing, which matters. They'll rotate the token accordingly. They have a reliability rating, just like equipment. They can have smoke launchers to launch smoke grenades around. So attacks from small arms fire get a +2 modifier due to the size of the vehicle, but they tend to have a lot of armor. So you can do damage to specific components. When a vehicle is hit, you roll a d10. If the hit has penetrated the armor of the vehicle, use the penetration column. Reduce the damage by the modified armor level before applying your results. If you roll a component not present or already destroyed, move up 1 row on the table until you reach a component that is present. If the hit didn't penetrate, use the no penetration column. Penetrating hits only if the damage done exceeds what is needed to destroy or incapacitate a component. The remaining damage continues to another component inside the vehicle. Move row by row up the table toward number 1 until you reach a component that is present, and repeat this procedure until all damage points have been distributed. Non-penetrating hits never cause secondary damage. Wow, so if you get like an anti-tank weapon, it does a huge amount of damage. That'll kind of cascade through the component systems of the target. Pretty awesome. We got different kind of weapon mounts: turrets, coaxial, hull mounts, and pintle mounts. Then we have our D10 component roll here. So penetration, no penetration. Fuel and traction wheels, of course, would be bad. If a weapon with an explosive effect penetrates a vehion, all occupants suffer the effects of the explosion in addition to any direct damage. Blast power is not decreased by the armor. Occupants of a vehicle that's penetrated by an attack must make an immediate CUF roll, even if they weren't hurt. And anybody who fails must immediately bail out and spend a slow action to exit the vehicle. Hits the engine, fuel tank, suspension, tracks, or wheels render a vehicle inoperable and unable to be driven further until it's repaired. They got details about each individual component. Vehicle night vision, fire control systems. You can do called shots on vehicles as well, which give you the typical -2 modifier. Some passengers can be exposed as well, so they don't get protection from being inside the vehicle. You can scavenge parts from vehicles. You can ram them, use them as weapons. You can ride horses and do ranged close combat from horses. More detailed combat rules for boats will be included in future modules of the game, and that's coming out soon. Speaking of which, here we have weapons and gear. Basically, there's some detail here about trading and bartering, and it gives you ideas about stuff that's common, stuff that's scarce, and stuff that's rare, and the quantities that you typically would find them. The reliability when you buy an item or barter for it is determined by a random roll. And then we've got pictures for every damn weapon in the game. How cool is that? We've got spiked bats, machetes, got bows, crossbows, civilian firearms, rifles, pistols, pipe guns, which are like improvised guns, zip guns, what fires pistol rounds, military weapons for the US, we've got heavy stuff, anti-tank stuff, missile weapons, Soviet weapons, again, starting from small arms, moving up to heavy stuff. Then we got Swedish military weapons, again, from light all the way up to heavy. Then we have Polish military weapons. Then we have other military weapons. So these are more kind of standardized stuff from other nations, like German things. The Israeli Uzi, widely used. Different types of grenades, fragmentation, anti-tank, white phosphorus, and improvised. You can also use Molotov cocktails for fire C. White phosphorus gives you fire B. You got artillery, gives you rate of fire, the blast type, the range, armor modifiers, etc. Mortars, you can use different types of rounds as well, like high explosive, chemical, or illumination. Howitzers, you can do the same. Heavy weapons ammo, their weight, their prices, the calibers that are used for different types, and your mines and explosives. So their blast strength, damage and crit thresholds, armor mods, etc. And then we've got our vehicles. Types, we've got armor personnel carriers, APC, IFVs are infantry fighting vehicles, and MBTs are main battle tanks. And again, we have pictures for everything, which is awesome. We've got the Humvee, we've got the M151, which is a Jeep, basically. We've got the M113. This has a lot more armor to it. Bradley tank here. And we have the M1 Abrams. It's a main battle tank if I've ever seen one. So again, we've got, combat speed, travel speeds, lots of armor, fuel types, crew, cargo, weapons. There's a lot of detail for tactical combat in this game. So, you definitely want to have an interest in World War III scenarios to enjoy this to the max. Russian stuff, BTR series armor personnel carriers, T series tanks. There's a whole bunch of them. From T55 to the T80, all with different weapons, capabilities. The BMP series infantry fighting vehicles. Other Soviet vehicles are included. Swedish military vehicles. We've got various carriers and a tank. Excellent mobility in snow and mud. Makes sense. And the Stridsvagn main battle tank. Cool. Other Swedish vehicles. We've got light infantry fighting vehicles. Polish military vehicles. No, we don't have pictures for those. That's a shame. We do have pictures of basic gear, so steel helmets, Kevlar helmets, body armor of different types, communications gear, radio ranges, military radios for the US, the Soviets, the civilians, signaling gear, observation gear like flashlights, night vision, protective gear like radiometers, chemical agent detectors, masks, hazmat suits, medical supplies, tools and spare parts, electricity sources, explosives like C4, dynamite, IEDs, rations like wild food and domestic food, field rations, field gear, fatigues, backpacks, tents, etc. Then home bases. So you can find bases that would be suitable, like a bomb shelter, a bridge, a gated community, shipwreck, trailer park, whatever. So you'll need to clean it out with survival rolls and stamina rolls. You may need to clear out some previous occupants, there's anybody there. And then you can build facilities that do cool stuff. You can have cow pens, croplands, defenses, heaters, infirmaries, garages, generators, lookout points, pigsties, prison cells, root cellars, shrines, a still, a well, windmill, and a workshop. And then you can construct stuff, including weapons, ammo, vehicles. Very, very cool. I'm a huge fan of base building games, as I've said before, so big fan of that. Then we have, finally, some stuff about travel here. So again, the terrain type will affect your progress as you're moving across the terrain. Roads, open territory are the easiest to move through. Swamps and ruins and stuff are pretty rough. So where to go in a sandbox game like this is a big question. The referee should basically give you info to go on, like rumors of nearby enemies to flee from, or interesting things that you saw in the distance you might want to investigate, stuff like that. Then you got to organize your tasks and shifts for the day. Things like marching, driving, gathering fuel, scrounging, foraging, making camp, cooking, resting, sleeping, and so on. The weather can affect your ability to march. If you are marching on foot, you'll need to walk across a nuclear wasteland by yourself, which is never fun. You can be interrupted during your shift of movement. You can march for 2 of the 4 shifts of the day without problem, or you can make a third one. You can try to go for a 4th shift, rolling for stamina, but you get a -2 modifier. Oh, so you can go more hardcore in this game than you can in Dragonbane. Then we've got some details about the different ways of spending your time on the journey, keeping watch, scrounging, foraging for stuff, and a D100 to see what you scrounge up. That's cool. Hunting as well, trapping, different kinds of animals, fishing, making camp. Got mishaps that apply to camp, cooking, resting, and sleeping, exploring, city travel, and water travel. And that is the gigantic player's book. Now the referee's manual here, let's see here, it's quite a thick one, so we'll just skim through. Basically, this is much more about the background of the game, setting up info about the factions and forces, and scenario sites, and then there are some solo rules as well. So we'll skim through this nice and quick. So we have a timeline of the war in this alternate universe, what's happening in Poland, the order of battle for Poland. I love that they use real NATO symbols and they look a little bit worn, which is cool. Disposition of forces in Eastern Poland, Southern Poland, Northern Poland. What's going on in Sweden. Got the smaller version of the map. The death of everything. Oh boy. Then we got the disposition and order of battle for Sweden as well. Other countries, we've got Germany, France, the UK, America, and the rest of the world. Your job as a referee, so this is about getting across the goals of the game. So nowhere should be safe, resources are scarce. Players should take the lead. It's a sandbox game. Rumors are abound, so people will tell you half-truths and lies. Everything is personal. The end is never set. Death is a part of life, and hope never ends. There needs to be something to aim for, otherwise the game becomes a slog. So give your players some flashes of hope here and there. And they got some hot tips on the beginning of the game. Handling consumables, dealing with ammo and tracking, setting up encounters. Here's some nice quick stat blocks for typical NPCs, ranging from refugees and marauders and hunters to US intelligence, Soviet soldiers, Swedish officers, etc. Stationary encounters, on-road and off-road encounters, lists of encounters, so the different categories, and they give you advice on how to set them up, how to make them personal, give the encounter motivations, which is tied to the suit on the card. So clubs is violence, diamonds is wealth, hearts is fellowship, and spades is power. That's interesting. And the card value, note you can use a normal deck of cards for this. It's got 52 cards, and the suit and categories correspond to the values of the cards. You get different types of categories, and you can build them out from there. And then it gives you a list of the encounters, which we've seen in the deck already. Quite a few of those, but this helps you if you want to use a regular old deck of poker cards. To set the mood, you can hear some random radio chatter, maybe, give the players some hints about what to do or what's going on. They might hear some rumors from marauders or gangsters or, nearby special forces or something. You can get some mood elements on the road, in the woods, in the fields, just to give the game that vibe that you need. Factions and forces, so this is just detail here about different forces in Poland, the Soviet Reserve Group, the Polish military, the 2nd Marine Division in Sweden, the 76th Guard, the general factions like Marauders, Sanctuary, Civilian Group, the October Guard, the Spetsnaz, basically, the 11th Special Forces, the CIA, the DIA, GRU, which is Soviet Military Intelligence, of course the KGB, and then we got some info about scenario sites, which can be the prison. There's some interesting little setups here. Again, I don't want to do spoilers, so we'll kind of skim through this stuff. But yeah, so these specific scenario sites, they use the full-size battle maps rather than the geomorphic ones for like incidental encounters. There's also a scenario site generator, which is great. Conditions, site characteristics, situations, events, key NPCs, what factions are there. And then we got solo rules. So you can hex crawl and create encounters and see if you can survive all by your lonesome without a GM. That's pretty cool. But I think, the GM is there to give you interesting opponents and stuff. There are conversion rules as well for bringing stuff from the 1st and 2nd edition of Twilight to 4th edition. And there you go. That's Twilight 2K. You can see it's a heck of a lot of game in the box. Just like Dragonbane, it is a full game in the box. Now, because of time, I will come back and do a little bit on the urban ops. But yeah, I hope that helped you to get an idea about this awesome game. I'm very, very excited to play it. Love post-apocalypse stuff, love Free League, love the step dice variant of Year Zero. The contents of the box are amazing. Yeah, and there we go. So we'll come back later to look at Urban Ops. And if you want deeper looks at Dragonbane and Twilight UK, I would say maybe you're a bit crazy, but I will try and do that for you if you like. So until then, take care, stay safe, be well. If you like, please comment down below, donate to my Ko-fi if you want to support what I'm doing, and leave a like and subscribe to keep me motivated. And I hope to see you in the comments below and to see you in the next video as well. Take care and bye-bye.